Hey everyone, welcome back to Better Together, the podcast where we talk about what it really takes to build businesses that last. I'm Shawn Sundsvold, and I'm joined as always by my partner in business and in life, Kelly Sundsvold. Today we're joined by Max Lowy. Max is the co-founder of Attention Trading. They're a full-service digital marketing agency that he started while still in college. What began as high-production campus events has grown into a 15-year agency managing millions in ad spend across industries. But Max doesn't believe in niching down in the traditional way. His niche is actually consumer behavior and understanding what makes people move and aligning marketing, sales, and operations so attention truly turns into revenue. So in this episode, we're going to talk about scaling from scrappy beginnings, building systems that support growth, and why real marketing success starts inside the business. So Max, thanks for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Great intro. Man, that was nice.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, you had a lot to talk about, so it was, kind of made it easy, right? So
Sure.
let's start because I think the story is the best place to start for you, right? Like, take us back to the very beginning when you started the business, still in college. What got you going into this, and what did those early days look like?
Yeah, so we started the business. I have a co-founder, Steve. He was one of my fraternity brothers in college. So we started it back in college and we decided to do events. I've always enjoyed events, going to events and I guess promoting events. And we thought there's something here, right? And we went to school in New Haven, Connecticut, and there was a lot of universities within the
Mhm.
area. So you had our school, which was Southern Connecticut State University, you had UNH, you had Yale, you had Sacred Heart, you had all these universities that were kind of coming to downtown New Haven. And we thought, what kind of events could we be throwing for universities? And so we created what honestly started with bar crawls. We thought this was good. It was relevant to what we were doing, but we wanted to do something a little bit bigger than just bar crawl. So we called it the U Crawl Bar Crawl. And the idea was we were going to show up to any university across the country and throw the largest bar crawl that that school has ever seen. And so we started it
Interesting.
in New Haven, and it went really well. We brought it to back to New Jersey, where I'm from, did well there, and then we kind of did it everywhere. So we went to Arizona and Florida, and it was great. I mean, we had thousands of students all participating in this one event specifically, and then we transitioned into other events as well. And so another one that we actually sold this one to two universities was called the Electric Yoga Experience. And
Hmm.
so this was an interesting one. This was like a mixture between like yoga, Zumba, and like an EDM music festival. So high production,
Hmm.
lots of lights, glow paint, glow sticks, aerial yoga artists, the whole nine. And
Wow.
we would come to the university, throw an on campus safe event for students. And so the universities would buy it and it was great. And honestly, I still think this event would do really well today. It costs a lot to produce that kind of event. So, but we did this for a while and then it kind of just transitioned into more digital, right? So we started building out websites and customizing and coding and getting into the digital side of things. And so that's where it really started. We're back in college throwing some bar crawls and electric yoga experience. And now we're full service digital marketing agency, doing everything from the web dev, design, SEO, IO, branding. I mean, you name it, we do it. So yeah, it's been a ride for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I was just thinking like the bar crawl and like the biggest bar crawl ever, I think was the words that you said, like liability. You've got all
Yeah.
these drunk college students on a bar crawl. What kind of liability would you have there? So I'm sure. So
Yeah.
kind of, yeah, I'm sure
We
that
we
was
we
crazy,
we
right?
definitely that was one reason we kinda tapered it down, and stopped doing them. Not that we never had an incident, thank
Right.
goodness.
Yeah.
But we tried to make sure that, we had everything in place, we were ready to go. We always, involved the police and the cities and the
Hmm.
municipalities to get involved. We also, monetization-wise, we brought on sponsors, not only local, but we went after national brands to sponsor. So we tried to do it as the right way as possible and doing this from scratch and it being a college kid and wanting to have a good time. Yeah, it was tricky to find that balance, but it was a great learning
Yeah.
experience for us in what real business actually was.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. I mean, especially like just, if you're a similar age, it's fun and you can be safe about it too. So
Yeah.
event marketing isn't where most agencies start with. Like, I can confidently say in my marketing career, event marketing is not what I've done at all. What made you and your co-founder kind of think, let's build something around this?
Yeah, so in college, I had some really great internships. One was with Versace in New York, and it was specifically for event marketing. And so I learned from the best of the best. CMO of Versace at the time, she's now the CMO of Todd's Group, Stacey Henderson, who I still talk to. She's one of my mentors. It's great that I can tap her whenever I need to. But I learned the details for events, right? And events is it's a great segue into like really anything business wise because you have to be so detail oriented when it comes to things, especially at Versace, right? And so I went from, $1 million budget for a single event for a night because they had those kind of budgets. But what I realized was, or what I learned was that we had, hey, here's plan A, and we need plan B and plan C because Donatello would come into town for the event and not like plan A and she wouldn't like
Mm.
plan B and she would just throw them out the window, right? And so we had to have things lined up just in case that happened. And so to be as prepared as possible, do it with any kind of gut intuition, marketing intuition we had, but also go on any data that we did have, which again, back then it was a little bit more limited of the data that we were able to capture, but we
Mhm.
did have sales data and we were putting high-end luxury style events on it. So I learned from, the best in a very different industry. I never really, my goal was never to get into the fashion industry. But I also was I was very different to that industry per se. And
Yeah.
so I stood out, which was great. I learned from the best and I was able to take a lot of those learnings and kind of bring them into what we're doing today. And so we're trying to create those experiences on a digital side. So, any of our clients are happy with what we're producing, but they're able to give their clients the opportunity to experience what they want them to actually feel.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know, just bringing in the college side of it, right? Trying to create those big experiences. Now, trying to deliver that same kind of environment for clients. I'm curious, just thinking through those first few years, right? Of like, putting these events together and watching it sort of transition into a bigger marketing agency. What were those first few years like as you guys are putting these things together and watching your business grow and evolve and change into something, more along the lines of what you're doing now? What was harder than you expected in that process?
I think it's all hard. It's still hard, right? Even like today, we have growing pains, right? And so
Mm.
we're having our best year ever. Last year was our best year ever before that. And so I think one thing that we've realized and have kind of I don't know if this is unique to us, but like this was never really a full-time thing for us. Like I always had a
Hmm.
W-2 and we did this on the side and Steve always had his freelance or a W-2 and he was doing this on the side. And so we were able to build a six-figure agency on the side, which was fantastic. And, we kind of picked and chose the clients. As we decided to make this full-time though, that's when it's like, okay, well, now what? Right? Like we
Yeah.
Yeah.
have more capacity to give. What does that look like? What are the systems that we need to be built, set up? And then every stage of growth, stuff breaks. What worked
Mhm.
when we were just two people doesn't work when we're, two people and 10 tenants, right? And support.
Hmm.
So it's really just figuring out those systems for us to operate efficiently, profitably, and then also, you want to be as efficient as possible with any kind of dollars. And so it's
Mhm.
kind of just like one of those things. It's constantly breaking our process and building it to where we need to be.
Yeah. Definitely, I feel like that is something so relatable to any small business owner, like getting started, because we've talked a lot on this podcast, even, and like we've talked with our clients. You're experiencing it too, just that those growing pains that happen as you try to scale. And when you try to scale and there's issues in the foundation, you start getting like a little bit of a leaning tower of Pisa thing going on. You got to make sure all those foundational, those systems, those processes, SOPs, all those like quote unquote boring stuff. It really, honestly, it sounds like you guys have gone through that and now you guys are scaling with some really solid foundation, which is awesome. One of the things that Shawn mentioned in the intro, and it's something that you've talked about too is, you've grown without picking a niche in a traditional sense. Did you ever question that decision when everyone else was saying pick a niche, pick a niche?
Yeah. I mean, I question it all the time when, you hear people that have been super successful or they say they're very successful, the riches are in the niches, right? Like you hear it all the
Hmm.
time. We haven't done that because for me, I don't want to narrow or pigeonhole ourselves to a specific industry. I don't think it's fair to our clients to do that. Personally, I know some agencies they only work with car dealerships, they only work with movers or whatever it is. We like to be able to learn, and for us, like that's a personal thing. Like we want to learn more. We don't want to get bored of what we're doing, and we
Right.
want to be able to provide a lot of value to our clients. And I think by only doing the same thing over and over and over again, I think it's doing a disservice to our clients and it's doing a disservice to us. And so we're able to take some of the data from all different industries to see what's working over here and say, hey, you know what? This works over here really well. This is a completely different industry. Maybe if we try this and tweak it a little bit,
Hmm.
it might actually perform over here as well. Right. And so we try
Yeah.
to just have fun with it because at the end of the day, I don't know what's going to work. Right. I like to say I have a good gut for marketing. I like to see what the data says, but at the end of the day, the consumer is going to tell me what's working or not.
Hmm.
And so any agencies like guarantees, I'm like, I don't know how they guarantee because I don't know what's going to work. I'm
No.
just basing it
Yeah.
off of data and intuition and, things that we see working across the board. And so that's kind of where we're at. And also I think by niching down, it's less fun. I always say like I'm creative until I hang out with like real creatives, but I like to be creative and I like to figure out new campaigns and when you're only working in one industry, I think it can get boring pretty
Hmm.
Mm,
quickly. And so that's why we haven't decided to go that route.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I definitely share that sentiment.
Yeah. So, again, just kind of thinking of those, as you're developing the business, right? One of the things we talked about when we first talked was as you were trying to get this going, you tried to save your daytime work for things that were revenue generating, right? Which that can be a significant chunk of the business when you're small,
Yeah.
right? It's got to take that time. But then there's the back half of it of the operational piece, right? And trying to get all the SOPs and things organized that you briefly talked about earlier. And, one of the things you mentioned in that intro was like, yeah, we had our 9 to 5 stuff that we were doing for the business to grow it. But then I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning to actually build these SOPs and to really set the framework of the business up. So when did you realize that you had to go from operator and the person who's doing this work to being the business builder and having to build all these SOPs and things for people to follow so that you could delegate off all of this work?
Yeah. And oh yes, so Steve and I, we call them sprints. And basically like every 3 months, we'll do like a month sprint. And that's where we're getting up, whether it's like 4:30 or 5. And we are dedicating 2 to 2.5 hours of that time for our business, right? What is missing? What do we need to continue to grow? Because, like you said, the majority of the day is spent on client work, and so
Hmm.
it's we want to work on the business and not just in the business. We want to continue to work in the business. It's a lot of fun. I mean, we're building something that we enjoy and get to do every day. Like I don't have to do this. I want to do this. And the value that we're able to bring to our clients is it's real. And so to do that, we need to continue to figure out ways to be more efficient, to manage team members a little bit better, figure out what our communications are going to be, and again, promote ourselves. I mean, it's typical marketing agency. We're horrible at promoting ourselves. And so it's constantly figuring out what we need to be doing, but we do it in these sprints. And so, it's like honestly, every 3 months or so, we'll do a month-long sprint and we're just dedicated to growth and growing the business. And that's kind of what we've been able to do. And it's been working.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you've been in business for 15 years, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, kind of like looking back over the last 15 years, what's something you believed about business now that you really didn't believe back then?
Hmm. I think it's a really good question. I think it's super interesting because of where we're at now. And like the tech and the AI. Like I don't even remember working without AI automations and
Mm,
tools now, right? Like I'm like, how do we
Yeah.
do that?
I
Uh
know, right?
yeah, so
I just I just deleted an AI agent today and I was like, all right, you're fired, because like
Yeah.
we didn't need that one anymore. And I felt bad. I was like, I'm letting one of my agents go.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's an interesting question because like I don't even remember. I think I've always said, Steve would definitely agree here is like I am the idea guy. Like, all right, let's just do it, right? Like let's just try it.
Mhm.
And I think I still have that same mindset where I believe that, right? I don't know if it's going to work. I think I'd rather fail fast at something. I think one belief that I still have though is it doesn't really matter. And like I
Mm,
can't care too much about what people see or think because if I do, then I'm
mhm,
not going to try things. And I think as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, you want to try things because
mhm,
if you're just static, like you're just not growing. And so, even we haven't done an event in a long time, but we have like two event ideas that are just like gold. And I'm like, should we do that? Like, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And if honestly, like, I think for the event piece, like if we found like the right partner to do it with, I think we would do it.
Mhm,
Just because we're not focused on it. But like we're constantly thinking, okay, what else could we do? What else could we offer to our clients? Even perfect example, like our podcast, we do a similar podcast out of you guys. Okay, well, we could produce a podcast for ourselves. We could produce a podcast for our clients. So then we just
Mhm.
offer it to our clients and we'll produce your podcast. Like those are the things that like I want to
mhm,
continue to try because one, they're money driving, right? Like we can bring in some revenue that way, but also I think it's providing value in content creation and it's just different. It's fun. So
mhm.
I think the one thing that I think has stayed constant is just like, let's try. And
Mhm.
if it works, great. If not, we pivot and we try something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I reversed your question there. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I think, there's a lot you're saying that I resonate with, kind of that, the learning, the trying something, failing fast so that you can, try something new. Like there's a lot that you're saying that I think as an entrepreneur, we need to validate that that's okay.
Mhm.
Sean and I were at a party over the weekend and I was sitting at a table with a sixth grader. And her mom was saying, "Oh yeah, tell her about your nonprofit." And I was like, "This sixth grader has a nonprofit?" Like, I'm like, "What the heck?" But it was a really cool idea where she was bringing treats and games to retirement home. And, we were talking about it and we're like, entrepreneurship is something that you foster. Like, is she going to make millions of dollars at this? No. But or I should say, not likely. But
Maybe.
as you build and you grow, and like you have 15 years of pivoting in this business, you've been through a pandemic, like there is going to be things that you knew as an entrepreneur 15 years ago. And that, even this girl that we are talking to, like she might refer back to things that she did in her quote unquote sandbox, when she was first starting out. And those are lessons that you take with you. So, yeah, I think it's so relevant to our listeners
Y-
um,
Yeah. And
sharing
what I'll
that.
say is, my family, we've had a family business for 102 years. So my family's had a
Oh,
moving
wow.
company. My great grandfather started the moving company. And so it's been my dad and my uncles, excuse me, running the moving company after my grandfather. And I grew up working on the trucks. And, I actually thought that was going to be the direction I went. Right. So I was fourth generation at the family moving company for a long time. And then, you brought up nonprofit. We actually started a national nonprofit, which we could get into if you want. It's another thing, but it's a lot of learnings. Right. And so
Mhm.
Mhm.
I've watched my dad, have his business, the core business of Lowy's moving service for, you know, 38 years, right? And,
Yeah.
I've seen him also start probably another 12 or 13 businesses over
Mm.
the right, as a kid growing up and watching him, okay, here's a brand deck and here's like, again, they don't look anything like the brand decks we created,
Right.
but, just watching some of the things work and some of the things didn't work and watching how quick you can pivot
Mhm.
and do things. And I think that was definitely instilled, maybe not even on purpose, but between that and growing up working on a moving truck every summer. I mean, moving sucks.
Yeah.
It's the worst, right?
Yeah, it is. It
It's
really
clearly
is.
hard,
Yeah.
but I learned hard work. And
Yeah.
I think that those two things specifically coming from that industry has given me the opportunity to uh, take the chances, but also get up at the 4:30 in the morning and work on my business, even though it's hard. It's not
Mhm.
easy
Yeah.
to do that and to do it consistently. Like it's hard. So I
Yeah.
think that's something that
Yeah.
we've we've kind of taken from that.
Yeah, it definitely is, it's kind of that choose your hard moment, right?
Yeah.
There's always going to be something there. And I'm curious, now, hearing a little bit more about you grew up in a family business, you watched your dad build some businesses, you've now built, at least this one, if not trying to find a couple more to stack onto it, which I find most entrepreneurs do, right? They're not just a single business person. They've got a dozen ideas. So what is, having all that experience, what are mistakes that you see small and mid-sized businesses making over and over and over again?
So a lot of people, they know what they know and they don't know what they don't know. And I think a lot of mistakes that happen, and this is really hard for, really a marketing agency, right? I think it would be hard for you to say. I say it all the time to our clients, and every time I say it, I'm like, why would I say that? But at the end of the day, doesn't like what you're doing, no one actually cares. Like your logo, your brand, your that one social post, like it's important to you and your brand, but it's really not at the end of the day either. It's about the consumer. It's about what they feel when they need that service.
Mm.
And so I think though the biggest mistake that I consistently see is consistency in putting themselves out there and talking about their service or product or what it may be that they're selling. And I say it's the easiest thing and it's the hardest thing. Consistency is the easiest and it's the hardest thing. And I also think that people overthink the importance or the thought of importance of certain things when it comes to marketing and branding. And they just get in their heads and then it just takes too long.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I don't know what's going to work until I put it out there and test and test and test and test. And once something clicks, then I throw fuel on the fire with ad dollars, right? And so I think it's getting in their own ways and just kind of overthinking things.
Yeah.
And they just got to start. You just got to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With that, that consistency conversation, right, of figuring that out for your clients and realizing they're not, doing that same thing. When did you learn that lesson that like, I have to be that consistent voice out there and I want to get off the boom and bust cycle of like, I work really hard to get a whole bunch of clients and then I have to put all that work on hold to go do the work for the clients.
Yeah.
And then you have to start that process over. So when did you learn how to step out of that?
So and it's funny because I always bring up the family moving company for this exact question, right? The consistency question, because we've been around 102 years, right? We're
Mhm.
one of the largest movers in Monmouth and Ocean County. We move everyone from, all the universities, the schools, the hospitals, all the corporate offices, right? And so when I love when I go on like Ocean Cares on Facebook, right? And someone, this big community and someone's like, hey, can anyone recommend a moving company? And I'm like, how do you not know it's Lowy's? Like you send out 30 trucks a day down Route 35. Like, how do you not know? And so what it comes to is like you have a brand that's been around 102 years. They're super reputable. They moved everyone. Every single house basically has a Lowy's box in it, right?
Yeah.
But yet people still don't know, or they're asking that question. It's because people come and go, right? They leave. It's new people. And so that's why the consistency has to be so on all the time. And I just learned it from like just hearing people ask questions,
Mm.
just not know. And it's because you're not marketing yourself enough. You're not
Mm.
telling people enough about what you're doing. And I get it for us too. And it's not like trust me, we are not perfect. We do this. We're trying to get better at this, right? We have clients
Yeah.
that we do, web development for, and like that's it, and that's okay. That's the service we sold them on. And then they'll ask us, "Hey, do you have a recommendation for someone that can run our ads?" It's like we run ads. Like, why would you?
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's because
We've
we're not
been there too.
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
right. And so we're
Yeah.
not telling them enough.
Yeah.
We want to find that balance of not being annoying and trying to just sell because
Yeah.
we
Mhm.
believe in we're your partner. And so, but I think it's important to understand, like, if you're not telling people what you do, how you do it, when you do it, they don't know. You're not
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
first thought. And so how do you become that first thought? It's just that consistency of putting content out there. And so we're starting to do a better job for ourselves, and we do that for
Mhm.
our clients. So whether that's through traditional PR, through traditional marketing, digital, all the social channels, like that's the name of the game right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
that's for
sure.
sure. So shifting a little bit to like mindset, because hard things happen, right? Uncertainty happens. So How do you personally handle seasons where growth feels slow or uncertain, or you feel like you've just kind of run out of those creative ideas?
So I'll bring this back to the nonprofit organization that we started, and I bring it back to there for a reason. So it's called Move for Hunger. So Move for Hunger is they work within the moving industry or the relocation space to rescue unwanted food during the moving process, right? And so
Oh,
again, had the
wow.
family moving business. We
Yeah.
saw a lot of waste during the moving process, clothing, furniture, food. People were leaving it behind or throwing it out. And so, I guess 16 years ago, we said, hey, what if we ask our customers, can we take any of the unopened non perishables and bring it to the local food bank? And so we collected 300 pounds of food in a month and thought that was pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we brought it to the food bank and they asked if we wanted a tour. And honestly, we haven't had a tour of the food bank since like a class trip in elementary school. And so
Mhm.
they told us there was 40,000 people that in Monmouth and Ocean County that didn't know where their next meal was coming from. And so,
Wow.
the area, it's home of Bruce
Hmm.
Springsteen and Bon Jovi and these mega mansions on the Jersey Shore. And so to hear that number was really alarming. And so we
Yeah.
thought,
Mhm.
we're one mover asking a very simple question during what if every mover was asking this question, right? And so my brother, he quit his job. I was doing marketing at Versace, and we decided to create this 1C3 nonprofit. Knew nothing about
Hmm.
the MPO space, but
Yep.
we saw there was a problem. And the idea was, how do we take this one industry that gets honestly like the worst rep ever? Right. So whenever you hear about a moving company in the news, it's, hey, this mover damaged my stuff or they're
Right.
whatever it is. But there's a lot of really, really amazing movers out there. And
Mhm.
so fast forward 16 years, for Hunger is now in all 50 states and Canada, working with thousands of
Wow.
moving companies, relocation
That's
professionals,
amazing.
corporate housing partners. I mean, we are the nonprofit for that industry, and we've been able to collect and deliver over 65 million pounds of food. So,
Wow.
so
That's
Wow.
I'm
awesome.
using this platform as a little pitch, but I,
Yeah.
I bring it up
Yeah.
for that question specifically because I came from Versace where I had $1 million for a single event, right? And then we
Hmm.
built this nonprofit where we had zero budget. And so it
Mhm.
was very frustrating. It was really hard, especially at first, to figure out how to get creative, to bring in dollars so we could do good work. And I think that helped me align or get aligned with how to be strategic, how to continuously, get creative and doing it for the right reasons. And
Hmm.
so, I was at Move for Hunger for 8 years full time, growing that a nonprofit. My brother, he's still the executive director. They got a whole team of 20 plus people now, and we handle a bunch of their marketing. But I think I think just making sure that you understand why you're doing things, you're doing it for the
Mhm.
right reasons, you're working with the right companies. Yeah, at first you might not always have the ability to kind of pick and choose who you're working with. Fortunately, we're at a point where we've fired clients because they just suck. You don't need to talk to us like that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
trying to again, I'm trying to do good work for you, but like
Hmm.
we're human, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I think if you know that you're doing the right thing and doing good work, hopefully that's like the driver for you.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's that level of fulfillment that happens, right? When you watch all those things click and you realize like I've built this, I'm doing good over here, and you kind of just sit in this place of like you really like your life. So I think it's such a great place to be. And I think I know that's one of the things I love about being an entrepreneur, right? Is I get to create what that looks like for myself. And I don't have to have it be judged by anybody else but me.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I've worked for other agencies before. Steve has worked for other agencies, and we see the things that either are good or bad, and we're all the time we're having these conversations. We're like, should we do that? Like that
Yeah.
that'd be kind of cool
Hmm.
if we did it like that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I took a year and a half and I traveled the world with my family, right? Just I'm remote anyway. Steve's in Connecticut. I'm here. We have team members all over, so I rented out my house and we traveled to 14 different countries, me, my wife, and
Wow.
my
Wow.
two daughters, right? And so
Wow.
the whole time I was working, but like, yeah, I did that because I was able to. And so
Hmm.
I think to your point, like, how do you want to design this and your business?
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be a set way because that's how marketing agencies do it. Like, you can do however you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah. I know. I love the journey of like how you've created something that just makes you happy. And it started from not something that was something completely out of the box with like doing events. And then, you've kept staying outside that box to build a non-niched company, which, again, not as many people are willing to take that extra adventure on.
Yeah.
right? So I love that about you.
Yeah, I mean, and don't get me wrong, like I think it hurts us more than it helps us unless I can actually talk to someone, right?
Mhm.
Because like I had a conversation yesterday with someone, they're like, "Oh, well, do you have experience in this industry?" I'm like, "No, no, but I have experience, doing marketing for all different industries." And so
Yeah.
Mhm.
people think that you need that experience. I'm like, "No, that's the learn part. The
Yeah.
marketing part, the consumer part, like that's the hard part to actually master,
Mhm.
right? We have that down. Now, okay, you want me to learn about HVAC a little bit? Yeah, I can do that. That's easy.
Right.
Yeah.
But to them, that's the most important. And so like it's finding a way to get them to understand. And so yeah, we battle that niche piece all the time.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, Max, this has been a really fun conversation, and I appreciate you taking the time to do it and sharing your wisdom and your experience and all of that. Where can people connect with you and learn more about either attention trading or move for hire and the other things you're a part of?
Yeah. So attention trading is attention trading, all spelled out.com. LinkedIn, I post at least 4 days a week on LinkedIn. So come follow me, connect with me on there. I mean, we're on every social channel. And then I guess for Move for Hunger, it's moveforhunger.org, all spelled out as well. And they're also on every channels. Great organization doing some amazing work.
Definitely.
And yeah, no, I
That's
appreciate you guys
awesome.
having me on.
Yeah. Thanks so
Yeah,
much for sharing your short stories about your business. Just really appreciate it, Max.
Of course. No, thanks so much for having me.
take care.